And, speaking of experience and a lack thereof, I would like to move right into talking about what the hell has been going on with RFK in the last few days since I saw the last things. But what I am really excited about, this isn't going to be a total negative sort of segment, because I wanted to focus on something where we're seeing momentum against this fascist regime and against the anti-vax, anti-science movement, because there has been so much conversation with a lot of the big players within the scientific community that are now finally standing up and saying enough is enough. And I really give them credit, because the medical community in general is conservative, and I don't mean necessarily in a political way, but they're always very conservative about how they speak on topics and what they say publicly. So the fact that they are outright revolting at this point against what is happening with RFK warms me on such a level, because it shows you that there are so many people out there that actually do still care about each other, care about our children, and care about public health, that they are willing to now go on record against this monster. And he really is a monster. And I cannot stress that more clearly. He is one of the people that could cause the most harm in the Trump administration. And I need people to understand that. So I want to read a little bit about what's going on here. This was an article from NBC News. And it talks about there's outside groups organizing now to form unbiased, independent vaccine panels. Since RFK fired the members of the CDC's esteemed vaccine advisory panel, medical organizations and experts are looking for alternatives. So this is a big deal, right? So they've said that this one person, his name is Osterholm, and he is an infectious disease expert and the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota. And he is talking about how he is about to launch the Vaccine Integrity Project as a potential alternative to the Centers for Disease Control, an alternative to the CDC. This is something in my mind I never, ever, ever thought we would have to do. And here we are. But what I love about this is people are finding a way to work around. He said, we've always just taken for granted that routine child immunizations and other vaccines would be readily available and that they would be supported by the public health system. But now that is in question, because we know that Kennedy fired all 17 members from the ACIP and appointed in their place 8 new members, many of which who are vaccine skeptical or questioned any kind of restrictions around the pandemic. And we know that Kennedy himself has been bought and paid for by the anti-vax movement. And the American Academy of Pediatrics has called these new members a radical departure from the committee's mission of protecting kids. And they are no longer using the CDC's guidelines to guide their own commitment to children and health. That, to me, in and of itself, spoke volumes. So when I read this, Desmond, because I know I normally come on here and I'm a little bit of a Debbie Downer when it comes to what's going on with public health. But to me, this was a bright light that we can look to, is the fact that the medical community is starting to organize, just like many other communities are starting to organize around the issues that matter to them. So what did you think about this?
Sometimes there's a little bit of a shell shock that happens when you see an abuse of power, right? You can see this across the board with many different aspects of society. But I think that what happened in the first month or so of the Trump administration is now kind of it's just falling off a little bit. We're seeing protests happening all over the place. We are seeing people organize and finding different ways to push back. We are seeing Trump look very vulnerable, and so a lot of his acolytes as well. And so I think it is a harbinger of more things to come, that we will see pushback against not just RFK Jr., not just against Trump, but in many, many different ways across the pale right now. The entire regime looks vulnerable right now. I mean, I don't want to get too far off base here, but their beautiful bill is falling to pieces. The attacks on Iran were obviously not successful. His economy is crashing. People are protesting in the streets larger than anything that we've ever seen before. Yeah. I mean, now is the time to organize against these people. So the medical community wants to come out, push back against RFK Jr., what he's doing with the CDC, what he's doing just in general with Health and Human Services. Like we just spoke about, this guy is not qualified to be running this organization. What was his qualification? I mean, honestly, why was he appointed to the head of HHS? Like, we all know the reason for it, but like, he gave his support to Donald Trump, you know, in like September of last year, dropped out of the presidential race, and Trump just gives favors to people who do things for him. That should not be the qualifications for running a Health and Human Services department in the federal government. That is complete garbage.
100%. I mean, his appointment, there were a few people that I had a lot of concerns about. Kash Patel, him, and of course Hegseth. Those were probably like my top 3 most concerning people. And the fact that everything we've said about all of them has come true. They're completely unqualified, completely out of their depth. They don't know what they're doing. It's embarrassing. And as an American citizen, I just feel embarrassed right now for what is happening. But Desmond, I had this like,
I can only think of one person in his cabinet who's actually might be qualified to be there.
Tell me.
I mean, Marco Rubio, but that might be it.
Marco Rubio also looks like he's in a full panic all the time because he's qualified enough to know that this is a disaster, you know, like totally.
I can't think of anyone. If you go down the list of like Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, I mean, Pete Hegseth, I mean, like obviously RFK. I mean, just go down the list. I mean, who actually is qualified to be in their position? I mean, I think
Trump isn't.
It's Marco Rubio, and then that may be it. That might be it. Anyway, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, please. I couldn't agree more. I had this really sad thought the other night because, you know, they're trying to basically remove access to the COVID-19 vaccines. And we're seeing this huge summer wave happening right now. Nimbus is just, I know a ton of people right now that are just sick. So please mask up, be safe, take care of yourselves. But what I'm getting at is what concerns me is they're moving beyond COVID now. And now they're talking about the flu vaccines. They're not sure if they're even going to have one because there's been no meeting. Things that we've just taken for granted as the way we live in this world. And now other countries are talking about we may not be allowed to travel there. Because our measles and things have exploded here. So there's just going to be so many things that are impacting the American way of life because of what is going on, not even counting on what's happening with, you know, mifepristone, I believe is how you say it, the abortion pill. They're trying to basically, you know, get that outlawed. So what exactly are the things that we're going to be able to enjoy as Americans if we can't travel even across state lines, let alone travel around the world? I just don't understand why we're giving up so much power to these people and letting them destroy our entire way of life. And so I think going back to the beginning, talking about Mamdani, he is a clear pendulum swing away from that. He is people standing up and saying, I don't want to fall into fascism. And we're going to start putting up, I think we're going to see more and more candidates challenging the status quo. And good, because you guys, you haven't done anything to stop these madmen in power, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, the country needs a true reckoning, you know, because it's obvious just how quickly everything started like falling to pieces when these people came into office. Like, we need to just have a true conversation in America about how people rise to power, because sometimes there are people who just shouldn't be able to be in these positions, and they get into these positions because of what? Cult of personality, because they did a favor to somebody. Like, no, I think obviously we need to have increased reason. I mean, I'm losing track of the word here. We need to have, I guess, more strict criteria about how people get into positions of power.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
like job requirements, like, you know, submit a resume and it has to have like a few things on the list.
There should be some list of criteria. Like, you can't just be the head of the Department of Education just because you're a billionaire. I just do not understand how we have allowed it to get to this point. But okay.
Well, they were going to drain the swamp. That's how.
Yeah, they definitely did that, didn't they?
Now we see all the alligators and the snakes at the bottom of it. It's
Oh
so
God.
drained.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that on the radio tomorrow. So I actually just need a second here to pull this up, but
Oh, well, you just said it. Let's I'm going to plug this real quick, everybody, because I sometimes moonlight as a KDKA radio host here in Pittsburgh, but you can stream it online at kdkaradio.com. And Desmond, wonderful man that he is, he's going to be on the show tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about some other things that are sort of related to the topics that we touched on tonight, but there are so many things happening in the news. If you get a chance, you can tune in, you stream it wherever you live. And if you don't get a chance, I am going to save the clips and I'm going to be putting them into a Substack post for later on. So you will be able to catch us. And we're going to be talking about alligator Alcatraz as it pertains to a new detention center that Florida is building to house undocumented people. It's atrocious, next level. That's just going to be one of the many things we discuss. I know.
I
know how to bring out the sun,
ask
everyone.
myself if we are actually in reality right now. And that's why I had to go and make those shirts. Make idiocracy fiction again. I need
to get one. It's
that
on my list
that
of
phrase
things
has
to
been
do.
stuck in my mind for months now. Okay.
Love it.
But all right, more seriously here.